Hello everybody, welcome to today's video, where today I am going to be creating a stackable inventory system. Here we have the inventory system itself. I'm going to quickly showcase it. Now using the code, which is currently the only way to get items, but within the game if you want to add this in, you can make it that the code automatically adds this. But you can add stuff. As you can see, it adds stuff. You can stack things, you can unstack things, and you can also craft, which all works out depending on what amount is within that area. And yeah, it's a pretty nice system. But let's begin with the tutorial. Before we begin though, I just want to say that the inventory system itself, like the dragging and stuff, was designed by Funut, and the text engine was designed by Pixel Destroyer. So I'm going to start off. We have all of our code here, and this is going to actually be like a very much a different episode because I have created a lot of code, and so I have another computer beside me to reference on when I am coding. So this is going to be very interesting. We're not going to start with the stacking just yet. We need to make sure that we actually have the system that stacks for you. So I'm going to make a new sprite, and I'm going to call it amounts / stacking, whatever you want to call it. Like, you can call it stacking or amounts or just whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then I'm just going to create like a little button here. And I'll be back once I am done creating this button. Alright, here you go. I have this button here called stack. And this is going to automatically stack the items for you. Yeah, see, I was having trouble creating a system without, when you dragged items together, it would stack. So I just made a button that stacks it for you. So I'm just going to try and do this the best I possibly can. When the green flag is clicked, make a block prep inventory, or prepare inventory. We'll go prepare, I guess. And I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to go for a forever loop and make a block called check stacking. One without screen refresh. And I'm going to put that in the forever loop. And then I'm going to say when I receive open inventory. Now let's just clean up some stuff here. When I receive open inventory, we want it to switch the costume to stack, which is what I have called the button here. We want it to go to, let's see, 58, x58, x58, and y 142. And then we want it to create a clone of myself. So now when we start it, we need this to show. As you can see, the clone is now there. Now we can't actually really do anything with that yet, because we need to create the entire inventory system. So we're going to say that when I receive delete, which is basically the broadcast for when the inventory is closed, I'm going to delete this clone. And then I'm going to define prepare inventory. So I'm going to create a list called inventory stacking or inventory amounts. It doesn't really matter for all sprites. And in my prep inventory block over here, I want to first delete all of inventory stacking, because that's when we want it to delete all of inventory stacking. And this only happens once when the green flag is clicked, so it just like prepares everything for your game. And then it's going to repeat 30 times, or however many slots you have, including the crafting table slots here, which in my case is 30. That's why I'm using 30 slots. And then it's going to add 0. Add 0 to inventory stacking. And so that's just going to prepare the inventory. So now I can like add some stuff to the inventory stacking, as you can see, and when the green flag is clicked, it's just gonna prepare everything for us. So now, right now we're just trying to create the system that stacks things for you, and we're gonna move on to like using this with the crafting recipes and unstacking and all that stuff later. So I'm gonna have a when I start as a clone forever show, and if then else touching mouse pointer. And this is just to make the button a little bit fancy here and give it some purpose. So if the mouse is down, we want it to change the size by -4. And if the size variable is below 90, size variable is below 90, we want it to set the size to 90%. Okay. And there you go. And we're just gonna leave it at that for a second here. Then I'm gonna do a little bit of scrolling down here. Oh, one moment. We actually want this mouse down here to be an if then else statement. And in the else section here, we're going to change the size by 4, positive 4. And we want it that if the size is above 110. Then we set the size to 110. And in our else here, we're just going to duplicate this. Set the size thing to a below. If the size is below 100, and we want this to be a -4. And this just kind of gives the button a little bit of pop and a little bit of fancy stuff. So now I'm going to say that if the costume name is equal to stack, whatever you name your button, then set the item number, and we're going to make a variable item number, which is, we'll say for all sprites, I guess, set the item number to 0, and repeat however many items you have. In my case, I have 8 items for my inventory, so I'm going to say repeat 8. And we want a change item number by 1, and a broadcast a new message called move text. And this is just kind of reloading all of the numbers. And then we're going to make a block called stack inventory items, and I'm going to make it run without screen refresh. I'm going to pull it up here, and then I'm going to put this stack inventory items above the change item 1 and broadcast move text blocks right here. So now we are going to stack. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stack the inventory items here, and this is some pretty interesting code that I've used, which kind of checks everything, checks how many items are in the slots, and combines them all into the slot that's closest to this one. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? We have 7 slots here. If all of these slots are filled with the same item, then it will delete all of this, change the number that it will be here by the 6, and then it will just be that one item there, and go as close as possible to the start of the inventory. So we're going to make a variable check stacks. I'll go for all sprites. we're going to set check stacks to 0, and then repeat the length of the inventory list. Where we want to change check stacks by 1, and if contains, and if the item check stacks of inventory contains, and we're going to make a variable called item number. Actually, wait, we already have that. Item number. Then we want to set, I'm going to make a variable item amount. We're going to set the item amount to 0, and then repeat the length of the inventory minus check stacks. And we want to change check stacks by 1. And if item check stacks, so we just want to duplicate that bit of code, then we want it to change the item amount by 1, and we want a replace block, and we want to replace check stacks of inventory with 0, which is the empty space. Alright, this is our repeat loop right here. So I'm just going to set check stacks to 0, then put this back in. Then we want it to repeat the length of the inventory. And we want to change check stacks by 1. Alright. Then, if item check stacks of inventory contains item, and here's when the code uses a bit more math. We want to grab an insert. We're going to grab a plus. Insert the item amount plus item check stacks of inventory stacking this time at check stacks of inventory stacking. And then we want to delete check stacks plus 1. And we want the plus 1 because when we have our list, if we were to insert something at 2, then whatever was at 2 will go down 1. And so we have to add 1 to it so that it deletes the one below that was just moved. And that basically will stack the stuff now. So now we're going to do our check stacking code, which honestly isn't very complicated at all. Like it's a much smaller version of what we've just created. We want to set the check stacks to, and we're going to make it variable check stack number, or you can just name one check stacks -1 and check stacks -2. I'm just doing check stacks number, and we want to repeat the length of the inventory that we change check stack number by 1, and if we're going to grab an and equal in the left side, and we're going to put a 0 here, and if item check stack number of inventory is equal to 0, and we're going to just duplicate this and not put that inside, and not item check stacks of inventory stacking is equal to 0. Then we want it to replace item check stack number of inventory stacking with 0. So I'm going to explain this a little bit now. So it's going to check the inventory, and it's going to check if the inventory, if that slot in the inventory contains that specific item. Now if it does, then it's just going to set the item amount to 0, which is the amount of that item in the inventory. And it's going to repeat the length of inventory minus the check stacks, where it changes the check stacks by 1. And if the item check stacks of inventory contains that item, it's going to change the item amount by 1, so that we know how much we want to stack, and replace item check stacks of inventory with 0, which basically like deletes that item from the inventory while adding to the inventory stacking. And then it's going to set check stacks back to 0, and now what it's doing is it's going backwards, and it's checking for the very first item that it found of that, so that it can stack there. And then the check stacking, since you're pressing the button, what happens is that it can end up is that, like, if it says 1, 1, 1, like it's a bunch of items that say 1, and it compiles them all, then it will still say 1. So the check stacking is just going to kind of restart all of that. So pretty nice system here. So we want this to hide. So now, as you can see, we have our little stack button here and stuff. And so far it's not going to actually make any numbers yet, but that's fine. So we're going to go and add 7, which will add some logs. And if we stack, then all of these will delete, and this number should say 3. Yep, there you go. So that's basically that code completed, which is very nice. So I'm going to go to my text engine now. I'm going to make some stuff. So we're going to say, when I receive move text, we want it to clear the text. So it's going to broadcast a clear text. Wait 0.01 seconds. And then it's going to create the numbers. So create stack numbers. Create stack numbers. And we need this wait, otherwise things will like glitch out and everything. And this right here that you see, it can get removed. This if then statement can get removed, and we're going to do a when I receive open inventory. That's going to create the stack numbers. Cancel. Okay. And we also want it that when it receives delete, then it can also delete this clone. And this is just kind of like setting up everything. And when the green flag is clicked forever, we want this to hide, because we only want the clones to show. And for the costumes here, you only want 1 to 10. I mean 1 to 9. So 0 to 9 actually, so that like you got all the numbers that you need. So now in the create stacks, I'm going to use my text engine block right here. I'm going to set this to 200. Sorry, set this to 200, which is the size. And then I'm going to use item of inventory stacking. And we're going to duplicate this and just change the number every time. And we want this to we want to do this all the way to 30, so that everything works out. So I'll be back in a second when I've done all of that. And there you go. So I now have all of the items for inventory stacking, just like that. Now it's going to create all of this text now when when the inventory is opened, but it doesn't know exactly the location because this is the X and Y coordinates for the location of the text. So we're going to have to input the X and Y coordinates. Now, depending on how you have created your inventory system, the placement will change, but I already know what values I want to put in, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, I have filled in all of my numbers and locations here. So now if I open it, it will do that. So you just want to edit this, make it run without screen refresh, set it is instantaneous. Now you might notice that there is no number here, and for our crafting we will need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another text here. I'm going to make a variable, which will be for all sprites, called craft stack number. I'm going to take out this and put in the craft stack number. Then we want 52 and -50. So now when we do this, it will have the number there. And that's basically it for the text now. So now the last thing we have to do is create the inventory system, which honestly shouldn't be too difficult here. So let's just start working on that. So I'm gonna go here. So what this block is if I grab my add 7, which will add a log. This is the crafting recipe area. I could put my thingy here, and it creates a stick. So what I want it that it's going to be kind of like Minecraft, where this will equal 4 sticks. Although I should be having planks, but that doesn't really matter right now. So if we have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it that is going to set the craft stack number to let me see. It's going to set the craft stack number to, let's grab it times, then we want a 4 and 2 items. So we want an item and an item number. Now you want this one to be inventory and this one right here to be inventory stacking. And you want item 7. So this one right here. And this is just like my personal preferences. The code will all change depending on what the crafting recipe is and the amount that you want. But yeah. So now if we do this, and since I want it to be multiplied by 4, sorry, it's still glitching because we haven't finished the system yet. But since I'm going to stack everything, so I have this one right here. If I put this in, it's going to be 4 now. Aha, so it's still glitching, which is fine. We still need to do a little bit of stuff with the code. So now right here with this piece of code right here, I'm going to duplicate all of this and replace it all with inventory stacking. And the reason we do this is because all this is clearing the crafting table. This one right here is clearing the inventory stacking too for stuff that's in the crafting table, so that no numbers just remain even though there's nothing in there, in those slots. So now I'm going to grab a replace. We're going to go here to the add item, grab this replace counter, and we're going to duplicate it twice. We're going to put 1 in here and just remove the item and change this to inventory stacking and use 1. And then here we're going to grab a replace item right below this add. And we're going to go counter of inventory stacking with the craft stack number. With the craft stack number. Just like so. And then we're going to set the craft stack number to 0. And then broadcast the move text. remove text. Clean up blocks. Just like that. And so now we need to do some more stuff to change the code up. So if I go over here to this when I start as a clone block, right here, we're going to duplicate this piece of code right here, these replace items, and we're going to change all of these inventories to inventory stacking, so that it also swaps the stuff in the inventory stacking list as well whenever you're moving stuff. And then since we're swapping, we also want a broadcast move text, just like so. And there you go. And one thing I'm going to do is that when I start as a clone quickly in our text engine, I gotta do a forever that it shows, because I want my clones to actually show that, so that you can see their number. So let's just clean up our blocks here. We don't want to be messy with everything. And yes, so right here in this bit of code, I'm going to set the craft stack number to 0. And that's just kind of preparing things at the beginning. And then we're going to make some code, which is going to be the unstacking. So right now we've created our stacking system, which in theory should hopefully work. So I'm going to try this, add 7. I should hopefully be able to drag it. As you can see, I can drag it, it adds just like so. I can clean up blocks, and as you can see, we got the 4 and everything. And that's basically the code. And then we can stack it, so I can add more 7s, stack it, and there you go. So it's a very nice bit of code that works out very well. Clean up our blocks here. And right here, we're going to broadcast a move text, because we want it that when we add an item, it says 1. So we're going to go add 7, and now it says 1 instead of 0. We can stack, and it says 8, and it's amazing. So now you won't lose any items. So now we're going to have to create a little new section of code. I'm going to say when I start as a clone, that if forever, that if, and we're going to grab an and, if touching the mouse pointer and the key space is pressed, which is going to unstack it, then we're going to grab an if, the costume name. Costume name is equal to whatever it is. So in this case, this costume name is 6 for the log, but my top one is 7. And I have this weird glitch going on with my system where it subtracts 1. Like, if I were to say that I wanted to add 7, it adds 6. So if I want to add my apple, I want to have to say add 8 instead. So I'm just going to do my add 7 here. And now we're going to make the code. So we're going to say that if above 1, and if the item number, so one item and then item number, and we want inventory and inventory stacking, and we want item number of 8 in inventory. And this is just making sure that you can only unstack if the item you are trying to unstack from is above 1. That way you can't go into the negatives and start grabbing more items. Then we're going to do a replace item number, and we want this to be an inventory stacking, and we want this to be item 8. And we're using 8 because I'm using 8 because, like I said, it subtracts 1. So the system, when I do the add 7, subtracts 1 from that. So I have to do the add 8 so that it all works out. Then we're going to do a -1. We want a minus and a 1 and this is just changing the number right now. And we're going to grab this item number of inventory stacking and pop that in there. Then we're going to say move text, broadcast, move text. We're going to add this, which would be 8. And then we want it to wait 0.5 seconds. And it's just going to repeat over and over again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, put it right under, and I'm going to change all these values by 1 less. And so now if I press space while touching this, and if I were to add 7, stack it, and then press space, every 0.5 seconds, it's going to unstack that, just like that. And you want to duplicate this code and do it for every single new item you have. So I can say this, now I can go 5, and we want 6, 6, 6, 6. And it all works out. You can now stack your inventory, you can unstack. And I can do this with multiple items. I've been using the same thing, which is 7, but now I can do a stack here, stack. And so now what I can do is I can add something like 6 here. As you can see, we could stack it, and we can unstack it. Just like that. And it works really well. We can do like an add 8 right here. But there's one problem with it. As you can see, my apples aren't stacking right now, and that's because this item number right here, because everything has to subtract 1, we actually want to set this item number to 1. So now we can stack it, as you can see, and we can unstack it. So it's a very nice system. It all works out in the end. And yeah, so I'm going to just quickly do an add now, and this will work now that we've changed up the code. We just have to reset the project. We can now stack, boom, and we can unstack. And then we could still stack afterwards. And it works out really well. So, we can now do a 3, 4, 4, 4, 4. And honestly, you can play around with the system and everything. Maybe you can, if you have like any method of making it that you can now drag this stuff on top of each other, and that stacks it, then just let me know. But this is a stacking system, and it works really well in the end. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, because this took really long time. Sorry for uploading late. It's just because I've been trying to work on this for quite a while. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.